With $350 million from selling your freight business, you buy one wax-dipped bottle among pilgrims. A tour bus brake squeal pulls you from the gift shop door toward iron signage. You follow limestone walls to the old Bardstown gate. Tour buses slow for famous stops, but you keep staring at the neglected sign. You read a distillery name tied to land, barrels, and a reputation locals still argue over. You step closer. You buy stranded visitors their delayed pours at the tasting room counter. The guide lends you a barrel thief, and sleeping whiskey drops into your glass. Your thumb feels dented copper as the guide explains floor, season, and warehouse heat. One sip carries char, proof, and years no advertisement can fake. You stop talking. Aging is the factory here. The still only starts the debt. You fund the grain dinner without asking for control. Bottling workers question you under family photographs, asking what happens if owners sell. You keep the cracked chairs filled, since firing the memory would wreck the whiskey before you own it. You call the family owners from the hallway. You value the workers who know which barrel rows saved past batches more than old awards. Control begins as a payroll promise. You refuse Buffalo Trace's locked cabinet scare. The family lawyer explains control beneath a framed tax stamp while you study the room. You pay about $120 million for the distillery, land, equipment, visitor trade, and aging inventory. Family owners look at you longer than the tax stamp. You leave money outside the deal since bourbon growth eats cash before bottles earn. A buyer who spends the whole fortune owns stills and panic. You reserve the rest for aging years. Hard hats come off when you tell still operators their jobs stay. Steam beads on the old operator's glasses as he names warehouses by smell, leaks, and lucky corners. You raise wages where overtime carried the place through shortages. Good bourbon knowledge lives in people before it lives in labels. The crew stays. Your team audits age, proof, floor, and warehouse, while a hydrometer sinks in winter samples. You taste barrels that looked equal on paper and drink years apart. You mark leakers for repair and separate over-oaked stock from future single-barrel candidates. Mystery inventory becomes a usable reserve. You move cartons only when the core bottle tastes repeatable. You close the grain contract around a farmer's moisture specs and keep town wages inside the mash. Fermentation readouts become law after you find off notes that would age into expensive regret. Your lab lead sets temperature limits beside the vats and folds old yeast records into the routine. The mash still smells like the house, but spoiled batches stop hiding under romance. Prevented defects are profit in bourbon. You give bartenders a bonded whiskey they can explain with the proof cylinder. You rebuild allocation one serious state at a time as distributor badges pile up. You give Kentucky and New York different promises, since one short shipment can poison both markets. You send samples only to accounts that teach the bottle instead of gouging the shelf. Retailers hear the new rule from your mouth. Fair allocation turns scarcity from resentment into repeat buying. Buffalo Trace takes your back bar slot before your next case arrives. The bartender's ledger lists the rival's annual releases, and your label has an empty line beside it. You swallow the loss in the locked room. Bartenders can leave a famous rival on the shelf for years after your better bottle exists. Private barrel clubs choose proof beside the barrel thief and become unpaid salesmen. Your tasting mats turn warehouse codes into reasons guests pay more for less volume. Your quality chief shows you a fake wax seal glowing under UV. Collectors blame the distillery when fraud wears the distillery's color. You open release archives, lot photos, and authentication guidance for auction houses. Aftercare protects price after the bottle leaves your dock. You pour concrete footings with fire breaks, since one burned rickhouse erases years. You add rye rows to the mash plan and give serious bars a second reason to pour. Marked glasses surround the master blender as you build a panel that can challenge one famous palate. You taste blind with bottling leads, distillers, and old warehouse hands at the same table. The master blender still has the final voice. One genius palate can sell bottles, but a trained panel protects expansion. You keep limited release tags Bardstown only, and the checkout line becomes pilgrimage. A courthouse bar hangs your barrelhead sign after you anchor Whiskey Week around education. Restaurant owners plan grain dinners beside your tour manager, with farmers named on the menu. You fund seminars on warehouse floors, proof, rye spice, and counterfeit tells. The square accepts the crowd when local rooms and tips fill first. You lock char level and delivery with an oak stave contract before barrel shortages price you out. You make numbered labels carry an age ladder your old stock can survive. You approve an everyday age, a mature batch, and a halo release only when barrels justify each step. Your rare label crew slows down because scarcity must match the barrel count. Age statements discipline the owner as much as the buyer. You inspect a dusty bottle in the heritage cellar instead of pretending to restore it. You send education kits with export cases for London and Tokyo. Ambassadors carry warehouse maps, proof notes, and bartender training instead of random pallets. Your bourbon has to stand beside Scotch, cognac, and Japanese whiskey with the label covered. Foreign bartenders pay for scarcity only when they can explain the place. The bartender's tasting ledger wins more nights than a celebrity photo. You mount a sensor beside a barrel stamp on the hottest rickhouse floor. Heat, humidity, proof change, and leakage shape your sampling plan without choosing the whiskey. You pull the marked barrel only after the panel's glasses agree. Computers find risk, pallets decide readiness. The barrel thief rests between blind pours as the panel hunts the barrel with no hiding place. Your master blender codes the samples before anyone sees warehouse, floor, or proof. One glass stops the table. Single barrel greatness has no blend to cover weakness. You print lottery rules before collectors trade release tokens. You fund skill paths while a trainee grips the bung hammer beside you. The barrel filling lead shows how one wrong bung costs whiskey, labor, and future allocation. You tell new hires floor wages can start near $40,000 and rise with judgment. Skill turns local payroll into inventory protection. Lodge guests buy branded rocks glasses after sleeping near the barrels. You close wooden presentation boxes around anniversary whiskey from the deepest stocks. You release old barrels only after the panel finds balance, not age bragging. Your bottling lead stops the gloves until every signed box matches the dump record. The first pour stays in Bardstown, where restraint can be seen by the town that waited. You place covered bottles before critics, while spit cups line the festival table. You submit the mature release blind beside larger Kentucky houses. The room cannot vote for your story. If the glass wins without the label, distributors lose their last excuse. You chalk future library barrels off limits to easy profit. Auction paddles chase Buffalo Trace again while your table waits. Collectors understand the rival's ritual, and annual habits beat new merit in the room. You keep your paddle down. The rival can win the ritual even while your whiskey improves. Your warehouse codes show too few mature barrels for the allocations you promised. Your flashlight circles names that taste good, young, and dangerous to bottle. Distributors want cases now, but the rickhouse answers in years. Fame arrives faster than whiskey. A rejected sample glass sits between you and the master blender. You push for the release, and the master names thin middle, green oak, and heat without blinking. The glass tastes like a shortcut. Collector trust burns when one famous label drinks younger than its price. You leave a signed purchase order beside the barrel thief after demanding the release again. The master blender slides the glass back instead of touching the order. You hear the room lose confidence in your judgment. Money can buy barrels, but money cannot make a barrel ready. You face town anger over truck noise at the rickhouse site plan. You climb to an empty hot floor slot where a future bottle should have aged. You stand under the missing rack space while insurance men talk salvage. No check can age new whiskey into the lost season. The lost slot removes a future release from your blending library. From now on, promises shrink to what the wood can honor. You cut allocation tags before cartons leave the bottling line. You ration bottles rather than source imposters under your label. Retailers curse the smaller shipments, but bartenders respect the unchanged proof. The stopped cartons cost revenue now and save the house name later. You guarantee local grain work first. You place the pipette beside the master blender's glass in the blending lab. Every dump now waits until the master blender approves the glass. A rush dump can sell through distribution in one season, then poison collector trust for every later batch wearing your label. The sensory panel goes silent around your rejected sample. You return the pipette to the master blender. Kentucky lines form before sunrise. New York and Chicago bartenders pour you neat. You stand at the festival booth while Texas and California buyers count sample tokens aloud. Clear rules help you keep gouging accounts from owning rare bottles. A collector hands back the sample token without arguing. With fair scarcity, you keep demand hot without cheating loyal buyers. You send London and Paris warehouse codes with export cases. You open the old rye release for Tokyo and Singapore buyers in the bar back room. The bartender recites the winter floor and proof before you pull the cork. No one reaches for ice. Bartenders use that floor and proof memory to turn one old rye bottle into repeat pours after you leave. You enter the covered bottle against larger Kentucky houses at the festival table. Judges taste without labels, stripping away distributor muscle and annual rituals from the biggest Kentucky houses. A judge pauses over your glass as you stand silent. The small-town label appears after the scores are locked. Buffalo Trace keeps its cabinets, but you win the blind room. You mark future barrels forbidden with a charred stave. You call the anniversary dump off under the stained first barrel head. The master blender writes a new ledger page for whiskey you decline to sell. Old barrels earn more as legend, but emptying them leaves the next blender poor. You keep your hand off the bung. You leave the crown aging past your ownership. Bardstown locals drink the rare bottle first. You buy the first round with a worker's bottle at the courthouse bar. Old men name the warehouse crews before they name the label. Buffalo Trace still fills famous cabinets, while Bardstown men choose your worker's bottle after your grain contracts paid neighbors. Buffalo Trace cannot buy the courthouse toast you earned. Local bartenders recommend your pour before rare rivals reach the shelf. You pass the barrel thief to your successor. Years after the overlooked Bardstown gate caught you by accident, you walk beside the same limestone wall with workers. The distillery is worth about $6 billion because you own mature barrels, trusted allocation, visitor revenue, and global pours in one house. Pilgrims cross the entrance with bottle bags and tour tickets. Workers nod from the gatehouse, and the town no longer treats your money as the story. You touch the same limestone wall at the Bardstown gate that first pulled you from the gift shop.